Hello everyone, welcome to SFC TALK. 2 years ago, China set goals to achieve carbon peaking and carbon neutral. How are global companies implementing sustainable development in China in recent years? Today, we are thrilled to have Fabrice Megarbane, L'Oréal North Asia President and L'Oréal China CEO, to join our discussion. Hello, Mr. Megarbane. Glad to see you. First, let's talk about the strategy of sustainable development. What's your opinion of the carbon peak and the carbon neutral target proposed by China, and what does it mean for L'Oréal?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a big economy like China committed, for the peak of CO2 and on later stage to reduce it in the march to the carbon neutrality is absolutely a very strong sign. And we know that China was among the top countries in the Paris summit, a few years ago to be committed for this carbon neutrality roadmap. And obviously, as we always said, there is not a planet B. So we are all sharing one planet and we have all to contribute. This is why at L'Oréal, we also, in the journey of the carbon neutrality, we've been since 2013 very much committed to control our emission and also to seek carbon neutrality when we did our L'Oréal for the Future commitment in June 2020. But the big for us news is that China, L'Oréal China, was the first country in the world to have all sites carbon neutral in June 2019. And recently with our North Asia organization, we've been announcing a few weeks ago that the entire North Asia, with all its market and sites, we have been also carbon neutral. So benefiting also from the knowledge that we had here in China and also to bring, for North Asia, this first commitment in terms of carbon neutrality.
What are the important milestones of L'Oréal's sustainable strategy in the China market?
So the milestone, I would say, after June 2019, we've become carbon neutral, is to really look at the new commitment of the group, which is L'Oréal for the Future, and see how we can bring, transforming ourselves and keep transforming ourselves, but also how we can work with the partners, consumers, retailers, suppliers, to also impact the sustainability agenda on a second level. So that's what we say, to look at the value chain from upstream to downstream. So there was obviously for us some milestones in terms of climate, which I just mentioned with our carbon neutrality, but also on biodiversity. You remember last year there was the COP15 in Kunming, and L'Oréal was very active in terms of promoting this diversity. Of course, links to our industry, because we also source ourselves from a lot of raw materials that are also from the biodiversity and they are actually sustainable. Also comes to our formulation, but also comes to bring awareness to consumers. And we've been partnering in Shanghai with the National Museum to bring education programs to consumers when it comes to biodiversity. But I have also to mention the work that's been done with our suppliers, because we are also creating programs with our solidarity sourcing, today benefiting more than 26 suppliers and almost 3,000 of beneficiaries. How we can also have a more solidarity sourcing. And then goes also to consumers with certain milestones. First, with our green parcels online, because today almost 80% of what we deliver in terms of parcels, we call them as green parcels, but also in terms of developing solution of refillable from our packaging, or even collecting packaging from consumers, like we did recently on Lancôme. And in 3 years, we managed to actually collect in all our 300 stores more than 10 million units from Lancôme. And that's outstanding to bring consumers as players and as actors and contributors in the sustainability journey.
What kind of management and supervision mechanism has L'Oréal established to sustainable strategy?
First of all, what is very important in terms of sustainability transformation, that we had all a frame, worldwide frame, is exactly where and what is the roadmap that needs to be developed for each country when it comes to our transformation and also to how we will cooperate with the partners. And we had developed, obviously, certain KPIs on climate, on resources, on water saving, which is key. I'll come back to this point a bit later, on biodiversity, on business ecosystem. So we have many thematic with clear KPIs that we actually work on these KPIs to commit for improvement. So destruction of product, CO2 emissions, water saving, electricity saving, business cases with also our brand causes. And this, I would say, program is not done only by experts. It's actually done with our entire teams. This is why we also spend a lot of time on education, raising awareness, and explaining to our teams how they can contribute every day in what they do in terms of impacting this sustainable roadmap for L'Oréal China. And obviously, the last part, which is very important, is measures the progress and being able to reward the teams that they actually achieve this progress. And obviously, if we don't achieve the progress, being able also to understand why and put some, measures to be able to improve this in the incoming months and years.
What actions has L'Oréal taken to promote biodiversity?
So I would say first, biodiversity, it's very important when it comes to our factories, because we've been in Suzhou and Yichang, very much respecting the biodiversity, respecting also the resources, the gardens. We have also a lot of gardens with diverse species in our factory, for instance, in Yichang. And it's very important that our factory, they respect perfectly the biodiversity ecosystem around. But what is also important in what we produce to respect the biodiversity is why I was insisting that most of our raw materials at L'Oréal are actually sourced from renewable sources, the ingredients that are part of our active in our formulation. And there is also very important new ways to formulate what we call it's a bit sustainable formulation, thanks also to the green science. Green science is actually also new ingredients that allow us in our product to have a much more sustainable ways to formulate and also to produce. And this green science is a perfectly way to respect the biodiversity and yet bring innovation for consumers. And recently, we had one also very important point to also communicate with consumers about this biodiversity and the gesture that we are making. Because consumers are extremely interested in sustainability, but they need to be more educated and aware of it. And this is why we have the PIL, which is product impact labeling, which we just presented recently to in Shanghai, to the Association of Consumption here in Shanghai, to see how we can also communicate to consumers when they purchase a product, what is the impact, of this product on many aspects when it comes to sustainability and respecting the planet boundaries and obviously the biodiversity.
In your opinion, how has the awareness of sustainable consumption evolved in the China market in recent years? How can we better guide consumers to participate in sustainable consumption?
In the recent year, we saw a clear mind shift in the consumer in terms of consumption. We've noticed in the past few years, consumers become much more rational. Rational means they start asking themselves the question, why I'm buying, what I'm buying. And it's very important for a consumer company like us to really understand this mind shift for consumers. When it comes to beauty, we know that beauty has a lot of a connection with consumers. So there is the product and its functionality, but there is also the emotion behind it, and also the engagement that consumer has behind the product that they consume. This is why at L'Oréal, we really had these two mainstream going very much together when it comes to consumer. We are today very much advocating and explaining further to the consumer what is inside the product, what is the technology that's been used, what is the sustainability efforts that the brands are doing. Because consumers, they want to have a conscious choices in terms of quality and in terms of responsibility when they consume. and of course not jeopardizing on the efficacy of the product. But there is another angle for that, is that consumers, they have also emotional connection. And when they consume, they want also to be part of a bigger cause, of a better consumption, a good consumption that can not only contribute to me, but can contribute to the we. And this is where brands has to hold some causes and has also to stand for a better world and a better environment and a better society. And this is where we've been, moving into this new consumption from one side, addressing this functional needs and rationality for consumers, but also addressing the emotional part of it to be able really to engage consumers for our industry in this holistic way.
That's great. Thank you for sharing your views with us today. That's all for today's show. See you next time.